Welcome to episode 17 of Bloggers Are Weird. I am your host, DJ Paris, from the blog thoughtsfromparis.com, and also of the brand new podcast. We're filming it today. Going to be a video cast called O-Sex with Karen and DJ, where we take your relationship questions and sex questions and solve all of your problems because, let's face it, you don't know what to do, and we've got opinions and no credentials, so it should be great. Also, I have a book out called Holy Crap, I'm Bathing in a Rose. It's the best of Thoughts from Paris 2012. It's only $3 on Amazon, and you can click through the link right on my website, again, thoughtsfromparis.com, if this is your first time hearing the show. And just because we have a whole bunch of new listeners, according to my statistics, here's how the show works. Every week or other week, I interview a blogger that I respect, admire, and usually is very funny, and they read one of their posts, and then we chat. And then on the other weeks, I read some of my posts and chat with myself. So that's how the show works. It's been a lot of fun, and if you have somebody that you think I should be talking to, then by all means, email it over to me. Just visit thoughtsfromparis.com and fill out the little form, and I will give them a call, or give them an email or a Skype or an instant message or a text message or whatever which ways we communicate these days. Not carrier pigeon. No one does that anymore. But I always wanted one. I wanted a little, pigeon with the thing tied to their foot with a little scroll. You open it up and then it says, I can't live without you, love, Matilda. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, so today we've got one of my absolute favorite people that I've ever met in the blogging community, and I haven't even known her for as long as I would like to. Her name is Jasmine Banks, and she is a heavyset woman of color, and I know she's going to hate me for saying that, or she's probably laughing. Either way, she is just one of my favorite bloggers, and she's so funny in person, and somebody that definitely was able to settle my hash. We worked together at the Come As You Are party for Aiming Low, which is one of the websites that I write for. And she helped me for about 2 to 3 hours. We passed out giveaways and just made fun of everyone that came up to our booth. And she mostly made fun of me. And she's just a fantastic person, and if you're not familiar with her, you'll be a huge fan. Now, this episode runs really, really long. It's the longest episode I've ever done, and so I'm going to stop talking here in a moment, but it is worth it. We talk about her life growing up homeless. Her father's a drug kingpin. Currently, she's a therapist, she's a writer, she's got a book coming out, she's a roller derby competitor, on the roller skates and knocking other women around. We talk about sex addiction. We even talk a little bit about drug addiction. It is an awesome show, and I'm so excited for you to listen to it. So grab a pint of Blue Moon with a slice of orange, or whatever your drug of choice is. Mine is Diet Coke with a slice of orange. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Today's podcast is sponsored by romance-text.com. Looking to reignite the passion in your relationship? You have to check out romance-text.com. This is how to use text messages to bring back the passion and reignite the spark you once had. Now, if you're thinking this sounds cheesy, or maybe it's just learning how to send dirty text messages, it's actually not. It's programmed by relationship expert Michael Fiore, has been featured in over 200 television and radio shows. This program has a money-back guarantee, is normally $97, but listeners of Bloggers Are Weird get a special price of only $47 for the entire program. By purchasing the program, you help support this show. Visit romance-text.com and get the passion back.
I literally just woke up because I'm hungover.
Uh-oh.
We really, really won our derby game last night, and by 256 points. So, yeah, we stayed out and partied because we won, and I'm exhausted.
How do you score points? Do you score points when you body check people? Do you get any points for that?
No, you score points by how many people you pass.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Have you never been to roller derby?
I never have.
You need to fix that. You guys have a good team in Chicago.
Yeah, and is there a men's league or is it all women's?
I play on a women's league because I have a vagina. But yeah, they do have men's and women's leagues all over the United States.
I feel that it would never interest me to see the men's league, though. I'd only want to see the women's
No,
league.
you shouldn't see the men's league. They're horrible.
Yeah.
And
so how long?
They're not as good to look at.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been on league since January, but I've been there's a huge 8-week process to even be qualified to try out for the teams. So I've been doing it since August, trying out. But in January, I had my physical test and my paper test, and I passed. And I just recently got invited to be on the All-Star League for practice. So I'm kind of badass, I suppose.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really good at hitting people. Who knew that a black woman had so much anger in her, right?
That's not the black women I know.
Yeah, no one saw that coming, Tyler Perry.
Could on behalf of white people and also just decent cinema, can you guys do something about him?
I don't know. At first, I was all, damn, I'm so excited that we have this producer on the scene, and he's making these movies that may, kind of cross over and make white folks laugh. And then he started, making shit like Temptation, and we put him on the Michael Jackson list. So I don't know if you know this, and this is sort of top secret, but black folks, we have this list that we keep of people that we own or disown. And the King of Pop, God rest his soul, when he started hanging out with Macaulay Culkin, we were he goes on the list. And we're a little afraid to put Tyler Perry on the list because he's friends with Oprah.
Right.
So it's how do you shun him and not piss off Oprah? So. Well,
I saw Diary of a Mad Black Woman, and I had a hard time getting through 7 minutes. It was horrible.
Really? Because I liked that one. I could handle that one. But Deeds and all the other ones, it's it feels like the Nutty Professor.
Yeah.
We know it's you, Tyler.
Are you almost a fully licensed, ready to go therapist, or are you?
I am finishing up my hours. So in Arkansas, you have to have 6,000 face-to-face hours with clients before you can sit for your license. So
wow,
I'm in the middle of doing that with college students, and yeah, it's a nightmare. Yeah,
I can imagine. Is it all?
A great therapist? I hate those motherfuckers.
Well, do you? Is it a lot of just the same issues over and over again?
With the demographic that I've talked to, yeah, because they're private school Christian kids, and they are very sweet, but there's only so many times you can talk about your quiet time and your concern about having a DTR with some dude who wanted to hold your hand. It's a very sheltered population, and I'm not sheltered at all, so I have a hard time accessing my empathy for them, but it's making me a better therapist for sure. Because it is a successful day when I'm I don't say fuck off out loud.
Okay. So you're halfway through are you about halfway through the?
No, I'm over. I'm 90%. I'm just doing my last 10% of counseling folks.
Is it a lot of young girls with eating disorders, things like that?
No, because I'm at a Christian university, it's a lot of homeschool kids, and we did have a serious issue on campus where a girl committed suicide in her dorm, and so kids have been working through the grief, and that's some serious shit. But the people that I have talked to have been mainly just young kids trying to figure out how to be good Christians and have their own identity and to go other ways than what mom and dad think they should go. So a lot of working on autonomy, and I got that shit on lockdown. So
how much repression is there that you have to?
Oh my God, it's crazy. The amount of sexual dysfunction, intense, super intense. It's Jesus told you to do all kinds of bad things. I guess I don't know. I want to tell them, I can't because I can't insert my values in their life, but I want to tell them, Jesus is okay with masturbation. But
yeah, or at least he's got bigger problems than that.
yeah,
You know?
or like he doesn't care that you dry hump that dude. Like, it's okay. It doesn't have to be love. You don't have to marry him. Also, it won't get you pregnant, honey. Like, let's talk about, like, how babies are made. Not that way.
I just recently offended a girl I took on a date, and she was very, very funny and fun, and I jokingly, well, this was during Lent. I'm not Catholic, but this was during Lent, and I picked her up on a Friday, and she said, and I just, because I remember I went to Catholic high school, and I remember people taking it somewhat seriously. You don't eat meat during Lent on Fridays, and I'm not Catholic, so it didn't, I just thought that was just, sort of a strange ritual, but whatever. And so I'm taking her out to dinner, and I didn't even know it was during the Lent time. It didn't occur to me, and she said, yeah, well, I don't eat meat on Fridays, and I sort of did but you're an adult, and that's a pretty offensive thing to say, but I was just kind of joking, assuming she'd be like, I know it's kind of silly, but I respect the church things, but she got kind of like a little upset about it, and I said, but that, like, isn't he trying to, like, figure out Africa? He's got all sorts of, like, real issues. This isn't really one of them, and she got really upset, and then we never went out again, so I think that didn't help, but oh well.
Bless her heart.
I love that. That is the I love that's the Southern passive aggressive way of saying, what a weirdo. I love it.
Yeah. That's like my people. We'd be like, oh, fuck that trick. But I've learned in the South I can't say that, so I say bless your heart a lot. But you took someone on a date. I thought you were like dating the Chihuahua lady.
Oh, that's right. You did meet the Chihuahua lady. Unfortunately, Chihuahua lady is no more. She very sadly decided. She lived in Atlanta. I lived here. It just ultimately didn't work, which was a shame. But she ultimately decided she was one of those types of women, which I didn't suspect would ever happen, who decided to end the relationship on a very sour note, where we both kind of decided it wasn't working, even though we were in love, and it just sadly wasn't going to happen. She decided to then launch into me about all the terrible aspects of my character, and kind of decided that would be the final communication with the very last words. And she's a really largely like nice person. She wrote, "Fuck you, you selfish prick." That was the very last thing she ever wrote to me. So she's no more. Bless her heart.
What?
Yeah, she also said I was the most.
I'm sorry she used the unkind words with you.
Well, yeah. I mean, she also said I was the most selfish person she'd ever met. So I did take a little bit of feedback away, going, well, even if that's half true, that's still good feedback. So I'm trying to work on my selflessness.
I
by the
love
way,
how much therapy you have that you say things like that. Like, that's great feedback.
4 years straight now, every week. I'm 4 years in.
I really appreciate how she reframed that for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about it is, what am I going to do? Like I think she was a little bit more in love than maybe I was, which always creates a huge disparity. And it wasn't that I couldn't have been more in love. It's just it hadn't happened as quickly as it did, I think, for her. And then I think there was just a lot of anger on her end that surfaced at the very end, which, not much I could do about other than apologize profusely, constantly for the way I am.
Yeah.
So, oh well. So I'm sitting here talking to Jasmine Banks, blogger extraordinaire, and truthfully, one of the funniest people I've ever met. And that, honestly, with no hyperbole, that is something I'm very excited to say. And she also is one of the top dogs over at aiminglow.com, which is a publication I write for as well. So I'm excited to have her on board.
No way, dude. I'm totally not a top dog at Aiming Low.
Well, you're more important than I am, for sure. I'm just one of the lowly writers.
No. They just asked me to help with their conference. I'm not working with them anymore.
Oh, you're not? I didn't know that.
That's okay. No, it was just a one-time thing where they asked me to help. They might ask me to help again. Who knows? But, yeah, no, I'm not in charge of anything.
Well, then I know nothing about you. So did you, but I do love your writing.
And I love the controversy that you drum up. You just got a big thing from some crazy woman was coming after you for writing about issues that actually are important. I saw recently.
Yeah, I write a weekly column for a newspaper here in Arkansas, one of our newspapers, and there is this one lady that every single time I write something, she has like this really like scathing response on Facebook, and she writes into the editor and talks about how I should be fired. And she once called me the Rosa Parks of Siloam Springs, and how I'm always inciting 50-era drama. And if you're going to call like the civil rights movement 50s era drama, that kind of gives me a signal into where your psyche's at. That's
drama.
Right. That's my nice and eloquent way of saying you're a motherfucking racist. But yeah.
Rosa Parks, couldn't she have just moved to why does she have to make such a big deal?
Like, drama queen, what Rosa Parks.
I met Jasmine. I met you at the Blogger conference last year when we both worked.
Party, yeah.
That was fun, and we had a good time there. And,
was that hard for you? Because realizing that I am funnier than you, and I imagine it could have been a little bit of a. Was there grieving that happened after you met me?
I was very intimidated by you.
Well, you should have been, because you called me a woman of color. Who does that?
I did call you a woman of color.
Like, here's this very, for all intensive purposes, I don't know anything about your lineage, like this very Aryan-looking man calling me a woman of color.
I just wanted to act appropriately. But you and I, we had fun, and you were constantly making fun of me, which I needed, because as one of the few men at the conference, I received a lot of sort of undue attention.
Yeah.
And it was nice to be taken down a peg a little bit.
Yeah, I imagine dudes at those blogging conferences are like, they have all kinds of children just like running around.
It's weird. It's not that you get a lot of actual verbal attention from people. It's just you constantly feel like you're being looked at. And as a minority, I'm sure you don't know what that's all about. But
I have no idea.
But no, it's weird. You'll be sitting in a room where there's maybe 50 to 100 people, and you're the only man, and you just sort of get I think women are like, why is he here? What's that about?
What?
So
you just be like, you tell them that you're in the middle of your transition and that they can't judge you. And then they'll feel really awkward about it.
I am kind of effeminate to a degree as well. I'm not super masculine guy anyway, so it's sort of I have to summon my masculinity to some degree. And
is it like Thor? Like you reach to the sky and your hammer comes down and
I that's right. Anyway, did you have something to read for us today?
Yeah, I'll read my book review of the blog. No, maybe I'll read about being fat.
We'll read a bunch of stuff because your stuff's awesome.
No, I won't read a bunch of stuff. But okay, so let me set this one up. So I have a disorder, and it's the kind of disorder that keeps weight on my body. I know everyone's probably like listening to this and like, oh great, another fat person whose thyroid doesn't work, because that's like a common excuse. But I am a fat person that has a disorder that keeps me a little fatter than other people. But I also happen to be a badass, right? So I'm a MVP blocker for a nationally ranked roller derby league. And I got my Zumba certification, and I used to play soccer. And I got in my head a couple of months ago that I should run a half marathon.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, like, I've been training for this marathon, and I would, like, run, over 10 miles a week. And I weigh 275 pounds. So, like, I'm big. And I run fast. Like, my typical mile is, like, 9:21 to 10:40. Like, that's moving it, especially for a big person. So I run this half marathon, and halfway through, I feel like this crazy pop in my foot. And I knew that, like, I broke it, but I was determined to continue and finish this marathon. So my left foot was bleeding from a blister that had ruptured. And then my right foot was bleeding, and then my left foot, after it popped, was like excruciating to run on. So I ran the marathon in in more time than what I was training at, and that pissed me off. I finished in like 3 hours and 30 something minutes, and I should have finished at like 2 hours and 10 minutes. But so then the next day I can't walk, and I go to the ER to get my foot looked at, and it turns out it's broken. And I finished a marathon with a broken foot.
Amazing.
Because I'm a little awesome and a lot insane. So this is a story of what happened with my x-ray, and I'm going to read it for you.
Go ahead.
So the title of this one is Fat People Run Every Day. I don't want to be your inspiration. I had to have x-rays and subsequently a splint put on my foot. I ran a half marathon yesterday. My stress fractures were compounded and became worse halfway through the marathon. The sound of the electric shopping cart let out a Benedictine-like song as it labored to push me along the aisle. I looked down. The battery was low. I was cranky that my foot was in this cumbersome boot. Just an hour before, I was in the emergency room. My sore foot turned into a sharp shooting pain, and I wasn't able to bear weight on it. How did you hurt your foot? The nurse asked. I ran a half marathon, I answered. She giggled and stared at me. The amusement melted from her face as she made eye contact with me, realizing I was completely serious. The discharge receptionist tisk-tisked me. Says you broke your foot running a marathon. I looked at her, tired of this exchange. It was only a half marathon. Her acrylic fingernails clicked and clacked the keyboard, and then she stopped. Well, half or full, it's an inspiration. You don't see people your size running. I looked at all the bright-colored cereal boxes. I intended to buy something tasty to drown out the feelings of frustration. I glanced up, and Mary Benjamin is picking out her box of bran flakes. Hi, Jasmine. How are you? I'm fine, thanks. You don't look fine. You have that boot on. What did you do? I injured myself running a half marathon. Jasmine, you are so active. You play roller derby, too, don't you? Mary is a kind-hearted woman. She smiled and shook her head in disbelief. You're so athletic. I looked at her. Yeah. Well, take care of yourself. Don't get up too quickly with that boot. I became a Zumba instructor. I can Jackie Chan my way over a step during step aerobics like nobody's business. I ran a half marathon. My typical running pace is 10 minutes. A mile. I play roller derby. I used to practice yoga. I love hiking. I can swim. I love riding my bike. And you wish you could do a backflip on a trampoline as gracefully as I can. I also weigh 275 pounds. Maybe it's the frustration of having a broken foot and the knowledge that I'll have to take a couple weeks off of physical activity that is making me so grumpy. Maybe I'm just fatigued. I don't know. But tonight, I'm tired of being told I'm an inspiration. I'm tired of the novel shock and awe when people hear I do physical activities. 4 days before my half marathon, someone messaged me and let me know that they saw that I'd lost 4 inches from playing roller derby, and they wanted to talk to me about modifying my food intake and starting a weight loss journey. Do skinny people get messages like that? When skinny people come in to get their foot looked at because of a sports injury, do people think they're trying to be silly when they answer? I don't want to be anyone's fucking inspiration. I hate having to convince people that I do athletic things. I do. Society has programmed itself to believe that large people just sit around and eat and are sedentary. We all get painted with the same broad brush. I don't want to be anybody's inspiration because I'm not doing something awesome for someone my size. Fuck you. I'm doing awesome things for anyone's size. Maybe it's just time for people to reframe a bit. You're the problem, not my size. I held onto the basket of the electric cart and pulled myself and the clunky boot out of the cart. I stood up and hobbled toward the peanut butter cereal. I reverently threw it in my cart. I checked out and drove the slow cart to its designated spot. A very large woman waddled over to the cart area. Her Crocs were warped from the massiveness of her weight, and she clearly struggled to move her body along. She collapsed into the seat of the electric chair next to me. I looked her over, surveying if she had had an injury. She wasn't, that I could see. The hair on her neck was wet from the walk from her car into the entrance of the store. I smiled at her and nodded. Good luck with those things. It's like riding a slug through the store. She laughed. Yeah, you get used to it. Did you get the looks from people? I didn't notice, I replied. She continued. Yeah, after a while, you don't see them anymore. My heart broke a bit. My ears turned red. I wanted to clarify to her that I didn't belong in the electric cart club. After all, I'm an athlete. I didn't clarify, though. She recognized me as a part of her world, the obese people world. Truthfully, if I never say how physically active I am, so does everyone else, because no one thinks past my size, her size, their size, anyone's size. People just judge based on their shape. No one will ever look at me and think I'm a marathoner, though that's what I plan to be. After I get this damn boot off my foot, I'm still training for my full first marathon. Truthfully, fat people run every day, and I'm nothing special. I don't want to be your inspiration. So there you have it. That is my painkiller rant after I broke my foot. My
I loved
official
it.
fuck you for being judged.
Yeah, well, I'm relatively thin, and I've only been able to successfully run maybe 3 or 4 miles tops, and I used to run all the time, and that's all I can do. So I think it's amazing that, I see people who are trying to lose weight running all the time and, doing things like, I ran a 5K once, and I saw little girls running past me, and I saw heavy-set people running past me. It was so depressing.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. You can't judge a book by its cover, as cliche as that phrase is. But I could run all day long. I mean, like, I had my GPS and my heart tracker on, all that jazz, and so it told me I burned almost 4,000 calories. And after the marathon, I had gained 2 pounds. So my disorder is a real situation where I don't lose weight like the normal person because my metabolic rate is a little different. So it's frustrating that people are always patting me on the back, hey, good for you trying to lose weight by being physically active. I'm like, no, I take my kids hiking, we go do things, this is just my life. I'm just an active person. Don't look at me and assume that I'm on some kind of diet. So yeah, it gets a little tedious, but I put up with it. Every once in a while, I freak out and call them names on my blog.
Is that frustrating to have that particular illness?
Yeah, it makes me cry sometimes, but there are some upsides to it. So because I have a hormonal disorder, metabolic disorder, I build muscle really, really fast. So I have high levels of testosterone, so my muscle mass is over half my body, and I kick lots of people's asses. That's what makes me so good at roller derby. And because I have such high testosterone, I also have a high sex drive. But it also means that I grow a mustache that I have to wax off. So, it's he giveth and he taketh away.
By the way, if you want to follow Jasmine, please visit her website, thebrokens.com, which is THE broke, BROKINS.com, thebrokens.com, or you can follow her on Twitter at DJazzo, D then GAAZZO. So let's talk about your roller derby. Tell me all about that.
I saw stickers around town for this Northwest Arkansas Roller Derby League, and I've always enjoyed skating. In junior high, I was a jam skater. And so I thought, hey, it's kind of like dancing, but with body checks. So I went to the boot camp, and I'm always looking for things to be physically active. And Zumba was fun, but it got boring quick because it was the same thing. And so I just tried out. And so I did the 8-week boot camp, and then I did 8 more weeks after that to qualify for my test. I took my test, and yeah. Now I'm on the league, and I got an invitation to skate with the All-Stars, and so I'm practicing with them. I mean, what is it? It's April, and I just got on the league in January, so it was a quick invitation to move up to their A team, so I'm pretty excited about that.
And is it roller skates or what's the other thing? It's the roller skates, right?
Yeah, no, we're not rollerblades, if that's what you were asking, because rollerblades are a joke. Rollerblades are for gay dudes in fanny packs on Venice Beach.
You're not wrong. I ride my bike to work, and the rollerbladers are just the worst. And they often are not men who are not into other men. They are exactly that. And So what? Tell me, when you're in roller derby, how physical is it? Are you constantly bumping into people or checking that?
So imagine rugby on wheels. Like, that really is the best way to explain roller derby. We've got 4 blockers and 2 jammers, and I'm a blocker, and so the point of the blocker is to keep the other team's jammer from getting through the pack, and the pack is like 8 women skating pretty low and pretty fast, and also to get your jammer through, to get lead jam status, and so that they can get around the track to score points. So, yeah, I mean, even just to get on the league, I had to skate 25 laps in 5 minutes, so that it comes out, to like about 8 to 10 seconds a lap around the track. So, yeah, I can haul some ass on skates.
How often do you end up wiping out because you get entangled up with someone?
Oh, my God, all the time. We're always falling. That's the first thing you learn when you're playing roller derby is how to fall well, how to bail pretty good. But I don't do a lot of falling because I'm pretty, level on my feet. Also, most people do falling because they get hit, and people either don't try to hit me, or when they do, they can't move me, so they give up pretty quick. So, yeah, my name's Boombox. All roller derby girls have, basically alter egos or different names, and my coach named me Boombox.
Was there a particular reason, or just because you're black, or?
I'd like to think it's because I'm his favorite of all time, and I'm better than everybody else. But he says it's because I have a vivacious personality, and pretty much, it's really funny that anytime we're practicing, I'm usually singing something or rapping Run DMC or something. I mean, they're my favorite rap group. And so he was like, "You're always singing, you're always doing something and moving, and so Boombox would just be a perfect name for you." And he'd always wanted to name someone Boombox, so he named me that. But what he doesn't know is I'm always moving and bouncing around because I have ADD, and I don't take my Adderall during practice. So I'm just unfocused, but it turns out he thinks that's vivacious, so we'll go with it.
Oh, I want to talk to you about Adderall real quickly. So I do not take Adderall, although I have ADD. Because I'm an alcoholic,
yeah.
and addicts don't do too well with stimulants.
Yeah.
But I don't drink caffeine or anything. I'm really boring. But I recently started drinking caffeine again, which is sort of like a relapse for me. But anyway, and all of a sudden I could focus extremely well whenever I'm on caffeine.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to see my doc. I don't want to be on caffeine though because it just has horrible withdrawals, and I just don't like it.
Yeah.
But it works. So I'm actually going to see my doctor this week and beg him to put me on Adderall, just because I was on Adderall, and I've never abused medicine or anything, but he's sort of reluctant to talk about it because of my addictions. But I've been sober for a long time, but it's one of those things where, oh my God, does that stuff, it works so well to hyper-focus me.
Yeah, I mean, I typically only take it on days whenever I know I'm going to see a client, or I have something that is really important that I have to focus and stop getting on Facebook and ending up Googling pandas. So, but even with that, people were like, "Oh, you take Adderall? Yeah, that helps you lose weight." I'm like, what the hell? Even my doctor was like, "Yeah, I mean, I kind of have expected you to lose weight when you were on that Adderall, but no, that disorder is just going to keep it on you." And I was like, "Surprise, surprise, motherfucker. I don't know what to tell you. Giving me medicine for my ADD in hopes I shed a few pounds."
When I was going through my divorce, my doctor, the psychiatrist, said, "Now be prepared. You're going to lose a lot of weight. You're not going to have much of an appetite." And he's been doing this 30 years. He's seen a million people go through divorce. And so I said, "Okay." And then I came back 6 months later, and I'd gained 30 pounds. And he goes, "Oh, you went the other way."
You were like, "Joke's on you."
Joke's on you, I ate my feelings.
You'd be like, "You should know I've got parent issues. You told me to do one thing, and I did the other."
I was like, I didn't lose my appetite. I gained my appetite because, God forbid, what was I supposed to do? Deal with my feelings? Are you kidding? No.
Right. Chocolate cupcakes for the win.
I reacquainted myself with Entenmann's. But anyway, so is it are you're gonna continue with the roller derby indefinitely? You'd really like it?
Yes. And I mean, we've got like the All-Star team has games in like Nebraska and Iowa and New Orleans, and they're the traveling team. So, hopefully I'll be practicing with them a couple more weeks, and then I'll be able to travel with them as an official All-Star. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with it.
Has your family got to see you perform, or compete?
To play, yeah. My husband has seen me, and my son was like overstimulated in 5 minutes. So
yeah.
He came, and that was his first and last game that he'll be at until he's a little older. But then my husband was like, "Hey, let's have a fourth child." And you're passionate about something when you're like negotiating that thing to fit in your life. And so I was like, well, what about I just play 2 seasons in Derby and then we have a baby? Garrett's like, that's 2 years, Jasmine. I don't want to wait 2 years. Like, well, maybe you can't have another child then, because I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, well, three is plenty. That's a lot right there.
Well, says the man who doesn't have any children. But for those of us in Northwest Arkansas, we have the Duggars to keep us inspired. And it's like, I have to level out the universe. Like, she's got 20 of those crazy little motherfuckers running around, and I've only got 3. So maybe another one. I don't know. We'll see. If I do get pregnant, you can look forward to lots more posts on my blog about my vagina and or breast milk. You're welcome.
Yeah, my last company I worked at, the boss's wife the boss and his wife got pregnant, and so he was a friend of mine, but not super close, but close enough to where I'm like, I better get his wife something. So I found out the baby registry. It was their first child, and the only thing left was the breast pump. That was the only thing left, so I ended up getting his wife the breast pump.
And those are expensive. You're a good friend.
Yeah, I don't remember how much it was, but it was probably like $100 or under $100. Yeah, it wasn't cheap, but it was my boss, what I was going to do, and so I bought it, and then it was so funny when I saw her the next time, months later, and she's like, "Hey, thanks for getting me. What did you get me again? Oh, it's right, you got me the breast pump." And it was just so funny to think, that's a pretty intimate object for a employee to get their boss's wife.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, and you know how whenever, well, maybe you don't know, but a lot of times whenever people give baby shower gifts, people follow up on social media with, like, pictures of, like, here's the sweet little hand-crocheted monkey cap that you got little Johnny. Here's a picture of him wearing it. Thank you so much. We love your gift. How awesome would it have been, like, and here is this thing attached to me pumping out milk like it's an udder. Thank you so much, DJ, for your gift.
Yeah, it was pretty funny,
for
sure.
Too bad you didn't get me a gift, because I would have done something like that.
You didn't put me on your registry. I would have been there. I would have done it.
Yeah, whatever.
I wouldn't have. But so how did you get to the South? Because you're not from the South.
Well, I mean, I'm technically from the South, because people say Oklahoma is still South, but it's like Midwest. I'm from Tulsa in the Oklahoma City area, so it's very like city life. Not Chicago city life. Like, you can still walk outside and not get like shanked. But, yeah, so where I'm at now is an hour away from where I grew up. But even though it's only an hour away from where I grew up, it is light years away, like, culturally. Like, things shut down at 9 o'clock in this town. It's insane. And I came here for school and then ended up getting married. He convinced me. And I gave in, and then we bought a house, and then we had kids, and so we're here. And I'm trying to, navigate life in rural Arkansas amongst, being 20 minutes away from the Klan. So,
how did you start blogging?
I had a Zanga back in the day when Zanga was cool. So that was, over 10 years ago. So I've always been a computer nerd and discovered Zanga and weblogs, because they used to be called weblogs.
Right.
And I started writing in junior high on a blog, and I actually deleted that. I printed off all of the posts and deleted it because it was junior high girl shit. But I have it. And I've always been a journaler. So when I found out that I could journal online and people could actually maybe read what I wrote, I was in. Like, I was always going to young author conferences as a kid, and I wrote my own little book when I was in elementary school, and I've just always enjoyed creative writing. So it was a no-brainer for me, and I had just happened upon a Yahoo group where they had been talking about weblogs, which is not cool anyway, because I was underage in a Yahoo group, and some shady shit goes down in Yahoo groups. Hide your kids, hide your wife. So that's what happened. I went from Zanga to Blogspot, which is now Blogger, I think. And then after that, I discovered WordPress, and it was amazing. So yeah, I don't know.
And now you've even presented at conferences.
I'm actually like a conference planner. So I am launching a conference for a company, their first blog/brand conference in May, in less than a month. So
can you talk about it or not yet?
Yeah, no, we can totally talk about it. It's with Collective Bias, which is a social shopper media company. So if you see the bloggers who partner with brands to do shops and look at their products and write stories, relative stories about the products or whatever, it's that kind of company. And they have a private community of bloggers that work hand in hand with brands to do content content campaigns on their blog, and they get paid really, really well to do that. Well, this is a company that has been, we're like number 3 in Forbes' list of companies to work for and to look out for, so that's pretty epic. And in October, they contacted me, and they knew that I had been involved in conference planning before and worked in this medium, and they invited me to be the person in charge of creating and executing their first blog conference. So we're excited. JC Little is going to be one of our keynote speakers.
Love JC Little.
Yeah, she's awesome. So it's really cool that I get to be put in this power, or this, position of power and influence where I can really bring in other bloggers that I've come across and get them involved. So it's a really awesome thing. And we're going to have about 300 bloggers come to Northwest Arkansas and stay for 3 days, and lots of awesome brands. Nestle is my title sponsor, and we've got people from IBM and Dwayne Reed, from Forbes, just really like the shot callers when it comes to the social media for large brands getting to interact with our bloggers. So it'll be unique in that way. You're not going through an expo hall. You're sitting next to the person who's in charge of Dwayne Reed's social media program. So cool stuff.
Wow. I only get approached by adult companies who want to advertise on my blog for, dildos and such.
That's awesome.
And not really.
You don't think so? I think it's awesome.
No, it's shady and weird. And it's not, it's not the reputable dildo company.
Oh.
It's but anyway, it's just I don't even get much of that anymore, thankfully. But I get a lot of giveaway stuff where people want to give me items and then want me to blog about them, and they're always sort of benign. But what I always say to them is, nobody wants to read about DJ getting a free pair of Ray-Bans. I said, instead, why don't we do a giveaway and we'll give it away to somebody because I don't want your free stuff. Because I'd rather give it to somebody who reads my stuff. Like, I always think that, and I get a lot of pushback from brands on that. It's really, some are like that, where that's perfect, that's a great idea, and others are like, no, we'd rather have you review it and write it. And I understand what you want, but the giveaway is I think it's such a more of a win-win for everyone. But I understand why they want to do it that way. I'm just uncomfortable, reviewing products personally.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, there's a camp of bloggers who are like, no, we're all about authenticity, and we just write poems, and we just blog about our feelings, and we don't sell out to brands. And then there's the other extreme where it's like, I don't care what the fuck it is. If it's free, I'm reviewing it. Give it. And I don't think that's not what Collective Bias is about. Like, they're about, like, the people who are working with these brands are people who have already been using products, like, in their natural life. They're not forcing any kind of narrative. And they're definitely not reviewing. It's not like, and then I used the deodorant, and it was more refreshing than any deodorant I've ever experienced in my life. Like, it is in context. So, it's a different kind of brand relationship, but I think there's a market for sex toys, and Collective Bias might want to tap into that. We'll see. Maybe I'll pitch it to them.
Hey, and I'm not against promoting some Benoit balls, or what do they call it? Oh, anal beads, or whatever they're called.
That's awesome.
Did I just say Benoit balls, which is like a 20-year-old reference that nobody even says that anymore?
Yeah,
but
that was like what? What's the dude who was like the big porn star and ended up going on reality TV? Super hairy, gosh.
Oh, Ron Jeremy.
Yes. I love that, like, you didn't know that he was, like, the famous porn star. You knew this super hairy reference. Like, that's what he calls anal beads. So.
Yeah, well, that's what they used to be called. But what I've understood is that apparently that's the brand. It's like the equivalent of saying Walkman or Kleenex.
Band-Aid, yeah.
Band-Aid, exactly.
Huh.
So, anyway, I have reached out. This is really funny. I reached out to, well, so I drink a lot of Fresca, which is really embarrassing in and of itself. I love it. And I reached Fresca. They don't even have a Twitter account. They've got nothing. There's no like swag. You can maybe find a Fresca T-shirt if you go like on eBay and look for vintage clothing, but it does just nothing exists because not that many people drink it, and it's probably one of their least selling brands. But I reached out to them and I'm like, hey, I drink the shit out of Fresca. I love it. I'm like, I don't know if you sponsor bloggers, and I don't even need your money. I just want to be your official blogger sponsor. I want to be the guy who's like sponsored by Fresca, and I never heard back. So.
Oh, that's unfortunate and embarrassing.
Very, very sad.
That's like saying you didn't get the part in a Tyler Perry movie.
That's right. Well, he plays all the parts.
Yeah.
So. I've reached out to a couple different brands like that, just figuring they were so. I'll tell you what brand was really cool to me, because I'm sure no one else has ever reached out to them. Do you know those what are called Fisher space pens? They're the pens that write upside down. Mm-hmm. They've been around forever. There was a Seinfeld episode about them. And
no, I didn't really. I watched
astronauts.
Not Friends. I didn't watch Seinfeld or Friends. I think that's a white people thing.
Well, yeah, it is. You're more of a what's happening in good times gal, or
yes.
what?
Exactly.
But anyway, I reached out to them, and they created these pens for astronauts years, like 50, 60 years ago. Anyway, they're awesome, and I reached out and I was like, hey, let's do some giveaways, and they loved it. So that's like I never get actual sponsors anymore. I get requests by people who are brokers who say, hey, would you like to write about XYZ? And I always say, well, only if I can come up with something really funny. And then they usually go, well, we're not really looking for funny. Yeah. We're looking for.
I mean, those pins sound awesome, but I guess it's my marketing and PR brain. I'm like, who was in that brainstorm meeting and was like, well, let's figure out our target demographic for this writing utensil? And some jackass was like, astronaut. And they were like, let's go with it.
They sold 7. That's all that they sold. No, they've been around forever, and they're awesome. But let's talk about, I know you have a really, I was going to say colorful, but that isn't an appropriate adjective. But could you mind talking about your family? I know, like, you've written a lot about your father, and, he was a very sort of interesting figure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we've chatted. I've talked more on social media because it's like, I have 3 kids and a full-time job, and I'm a grad student. I play roller derby, and that's like 3 nights a week for 3 hours. So when I'm not sleeping, I'm not blogging for sure. And so I do a lot of microblogging. So the context of my father and my relationship with my father has happened usually on Twitter or on Facebook. But my dad was a drug lord, and he came from the generation that went to Vietnam and came back different, So he sold drugs in our local town and was kind of estranged from me, and then one day turned up dead in the back of my grandma's backyard. So I have some issues about fathers and authority. But yeah, I have a really like shitty childhood. But I feel like everybody does. Like everyone. You didn't, did you, DJ? Your parents were probably awesome, except for when they named you.
I didn't get the car I wanted at 16.
See, that's like my husband's family. Like his sister, when she turned 16, I was there, and they presented her with this awesome brand new car. I mean, it had like 40,000 miles on it because an old lady drove it, but it was awesome and it was brand new. And I had to work 2 jobs to afford my car. Oh, and I grew up homeless, so the idea of someone giving me a car was insane. So I'm sitting there at this birthday party, and they reveal the car, and she walks up to it, and she's really excited. And then she looks inside and melts down into tears, and it's like, I don't want it, I don't like it. And it was because it had crank windows and didn't have a CD player.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was all, I'll take it, y'all. It's okay. It's good enough for me. So yeah, I had a very different childhood. My dad left my mom whenever I was 8, and we were homeless until I was 13. Like, we lived in domestic violence shelters, and my mom's severely mentally ill. She's mostly recovered now. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's sort of the Cliff Notes version. I mean, do you want to talk about like the awful shit? Like, and then
if you want to.
And then one time we didn't have food, DJ. No, I mean, that's not a joke. We really didn't have food, but.
Yeah, no, and did you think you developed a strong sense of humor as a way to cope with some of, what was lacking, or what, you didn't grow up with, or is that just part of your natural personality?
I think it's my natural personality, because, a lot of times people use humor as a coping mechanism because they can't face the other stuff, like they try and shove it down, and I do that with cookies. So I don't really have a reason to be cracking jokes because I could just go eat a cupcake and be sad. So yeah, it's kind of naturally who I am. I think it gets me through, and it makes difficult conversations a lot easier because, I mean, think about it. I am a black woman in the South who is liberal, who is queer, who is in a heterosexual marriage, with 3 kids that I was not supposed to have because I had, cancer on my ovaries as a small child, with a disorder that won't let her lose weight, but she runs half marathons. Like, I am the ultimate what the fuck. So I have to laugh about something or I'll just cry, Like, I have to make people comfortable with who I am, or they'll just, like, not want to talk to me and be so scared because I'm such an anomaly. I am the 1% and not what those creepy politicians were talking about, or 10%, or whatever the percent was that they use.
Well, and I assume, based on just our little interactions that we've had, is that you're a very astute and effective. In fact, I know you're an effective therapist because you told me, DJ, I'm a very good therapist when I first met you. And you got my number within minutes. You said something to the effect of, I don't remember, well, you were off just a hair because you said you thought maybe I had like a sex addiction, and I said no, I don't have thankfully I don't have a sex addiction, but I'm definitely completely addicted to approval from women.
Yeah.
And
which is like in a sex addiction category. I mean, it's like considered love addiction.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I have always been like creepy intuitive, and I don't believe in like the whole psychic thing. I'm just very like burgeoning into atheism kind of mindset. I would identify myself as a humanist. Sometimes I'm sympathetic to faith, like the idea of religion. I spent a lot of time in church as a kid because it was the only stable like place there was, and so that's a very like safe and calm place to head back to when things are crazy. Like, I'll break out some praise and worship music when I'm getting stressed out because that's just much better than like gangster rap, because then I want to hurt people. But I am very like, I embrace the scientific process. I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical. But I have noticed things about myself, and there are other people that are just so deeply intuitive, and they are able to like kind of like see people in this really like raw form, even when people are really putting on the facade as hard and as well as they've learned to do in society, that it kind of creeps me out at times. Like, I'm like, oh, maybe there is something other at play here. And then maybe I just think it's because I had to hone my survival skills so finely that I've learned to kind of have this like hyper awareness of what people are doing and how they're functioning in like community with other people so that I could survive. I mean, it could be either or. I mean, I guess it could be both. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound like Miss Cleo, but yeah.
Hey, she's psychic to the stars, I think, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. And whenever I was in Philly, because I was going to the inauguration, so I stopped off in Philly so I could see stuff like Kellogg and Liz Henry, my girls. I was downtown in Philadelphia, and I was like, let's go to a psychic. And I dragged my husband to a psychic, and she told me all kinds of crazy shit. Like, I was going to have my first child soon, and that I have a lot of power, and that I shouldn't share too many details about my life because people are jealous of me. Yeah, like, it was crazy. I mean, she was wrong about, like, 90% of shit, but the stuff that she was right about, she was right. I mean, it also applied to the other, however many billion people on the planet there are, but yeah, so that was a horrible experience. Why did I say that? Why did I bring that up?
I just was reminded now of a Liz Henry experience. So if you're not familiar with Liz Henry, she is the blog 6 Year Itch.
She is the shit.
And I love Liz Henry. I love her. And she got me a little bad press among the crazy get off my internets people because they don't like her. And I made a joke on Twitter about they wrote something nasty about her on their forum, and I wrote something about, well, hey, now you've made it when the lunatics over at Gomi have written negatively about you. And they probably didn't take too well to me calling them lunatics. And so they follow everything she tweets because that's what normal people who are not obsessed with other people do.
Yeah.
And they posted my tweet, and I was secretly so proud, as they put my tweet, and then somebody goes, "Who is Thoughts from Paris?" And then the other person goes, "Oh, he just wishes we were talking about him." And I was secretly very proud.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've creeped that forum. Cecily's on it a lot, and several of our other like good close blogger friends and family. I mean, at this point where I feel like we're kind of family.
Yes.
So I've looked at that forum. But I have to admit, like, there's a part of that forum where, like, there's, like, so-and-so blogger got pregnant by so-and-so blogger, and this person's marriage dissolved because they slept with this person at this conference, like the shit that they have on there. Like, it can be a little appealing to the dark side of me. Like, the reason why I watch, like, Real Housewives of Atlanta is the same reason why I was, like, really engaged reading those forums. But for the most part, it's just bullying, and I don't get it. I feel like as a therapist, maybe they might need to process through some things. But yeah, I don't know why they don't like Liz, because she is like, I don't know, like she's like, there's no pretense with her. Like there's not the people that they call out. They are saying like that this person's pretending and this person is, milking the system or whatever. Like they have all of those reasons why they hate people, but I still don't understand why they hate her. Because she's just real, she's as real as it gets living in her dad's, basement.
I was right. Exactly. I'm very, very close with somebody who they absolutely hate. It's not Liz, but someone else. And I created a fake account because this is the insane part of me that wants to rationalize with crazy people and try to convince them otherwise. They had some information that was so totally wrong. They said, well, the reason why this woman's marriage broke up is because she slept with this guy. And I know that's 100% untrue. Because I'm really close with this person. And then they had a bunch of other details that were so wrong, and I thought, if I just come out and say, hey, I know this woman, what you guys have is wrong, they're not going to believe it. So I tried to use my powers of persuasion to craft a little response, and it went exactly as expected. They said, oh, this is one of her cronies who came in. But it is amazing how some of that information just gets latched onto, and then, that dark side of people,
Yeah.
grabs onto it and
Yeah. I've actually, like, in class, talking about, like, social psychology, I've actually referenced Gomi as, like, this is the power of insane groupthink. Like, this is the power of people losing their fucking minds together. Like, what are you talking about? And at the same time, there is the egotistical part of me that's like, they should be talking about me because, hello, who else talks about their vagina? Because that's not, totally original.
Well, I'll go even one further with you. Is I am terrified of these people, and I assign that they have power.
No way,
this is all
don't.
this is all in my head.
No.
All in my head. I think they can hurt me, and I'm deeply afraid of them. And and I'm not a private person. It's not like if they published my home address, I'd even give a shit. But which they do sometimes do that.
I know. That's cool.
Yeah, right. But there's a part of me that is like wants to be featured on there, and then at the same time is terrified of these people. And it's all stuff in my own head. But
yeah, don't worry about it. They're assholes. I mean, they're not all assholes. Like, they just have opinions, and some of them are bullies. I don't think all of them are bullies, but I think some of them are bullies. But let's move on from Gomi, because fuck those dudes. They don't need any more airtime.
True.
God, they're going to hate me for saying that.
Well, I don't think they listen to my show,
they
so
do. They
it's
listen
no
to everything. They're everywhere.
So, what else is coming up for you? What have you been working on other than being a mom and roller derby queen and a blogger and now a conference sort of
launcher?
Launcher. Yeah. Anything else exciting happening?
Well, I am writing a book.
Wow.
That is a whole lot of fun, and by fun I mean it makes me want to die. I mean, it's like the dream of the bloggers to be like, we put ourselves in print, we are published, this is our book or whatever, after you hustle it out and work hard. It's what you want to have. Like, it is your creativity birthed into something so tangible, where the internet can feel not as real. And then these motherfuckers are probably going to download it on Kindle, and that's still going to piss me off. But yeah, I'm writing a book about sex addiction and being married to a sex addict and, how we kind of navigated through that.
Is it a painful process to go back through some of the, the wounds of a marriage?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, it was just like last year that my husband was in rehab, like a year and a half ago, that he left to go to Tennessee for sex addiction. So it's real fresh still. So it's more of like writing through the process of it. Like right now we're in a 6 month, I'm going to go 6 months with you to your sex addict specialist. And if we can't pull this shit together, then I'm hitting the road, Jack. So like it's real stuff. And the end of the book may not be like, here's how we stayed together. The end of the book may be like, this is where we decided to go with all of this damage. So yeah, it's hard and it's traumatizing. And as a sexual abuse survivor and sexual assault survivor, being married to someone whose addiction is defined around sexuality. I worked my ass off for years in therapy to come to a place of healing with sexuality issues. And so then to be re-traumatized with knowing that I was, having a sexual relationship with someone that I didn't realize was having sexual relationships with other people, has been a huge setback in my own, therapeutic process. But we're working through it and we're figuring it out. And it's not, and a lot of people ask me, like, well, is it because of the kids that you guys are, like, working so hard to get through it? And it's really not. Like, even if we didn't have kids, I wouldn't have just, like, walked away and been done. I don't think when people I think sometimes there are clean break situations where people just never really attached in the way that is ideal for relationships, and so they can walk away and just be like, no, life is really better without each other. But I think for the most part, people become so intimately attached and their lives begin to hold definition in the identity of the other person that it's hard. Like, kids or no kids, it's hard to walk away. And some of those bitches he was sleeping with were not so attractive. So that was a really hard thing for my self-esteem, because I think I'm a very sexy woman, especially, but I also think that I'm like deeply beautiful. And so it was really hard because my logical brain wanted to like figure it out. Like, why did he do, like, why did he choose that one? And I know that's really demeaning to other women, but I mean, it is what it is. And so I've had to sort of sort through, like, it's just not about me. Like, it's his addiction. It's not about me, whether it was alcohol or food or anything else. It's just not about me. And that's so hard to separate when it's about sexuality, you know, because sexuality is so shared.
Right.
That I'm like, no, it is about me. Like, it is. So it's a constant, you know, sometimes daily battle, but we're figuring it out.
One of the smartest things I ever heard said about forgiveness is that forgiveness can only exist once there's been accountability.
Hell,
and so once,
yes.
Like, you can't forgive somebody.
Facebook thread that pissed me off.
No.
So there was a Facebook thread like last week or whatever. I was in my marriage and therapy class for school, and we were talking about adultery and sexuality, and of course, for whatever awful reason, time someone talks about adultery, they talk about it in syncopation with forgiveness. And I was like, no, this is so the wrong context to even be having this conversation. And so there was like a 50, 80 something thread, comments on my Facebook page about how, like, when you've been cheated on, when someone has had an affair, you need to forgive because it's not about them, it's about you. That if you don't forgive, it causes this poison to well up inside you and destroy your life and blah, 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 blah. And that is so the wrong outlook of forgiveness. That is not that is an idea, and here I go. I'm going to start preaching. But that is a puritanical, like the Puritans introduced that to American culture, that forgiveness is healing for the person who needs to forgive. That is not true. I mean, if you look at like Native people and indigenous people, their ideas of forgiveness are much, much different than the Anglo, like, white people who came and introduced forgiveness. And so that's built on a religious ideal, and forgiveness is about something that's granted to someone once they've passed certain gates of expectation. Like, and so I'm not saying that Garrett is going to have to earn my forgiveness, but you cannot forgive someone without trust. And so trust has to be rebuilt, and then forgiveness can be established. And all these motherfuckers are like, just forgive him and let go. And the reason why people say that, DJ, is because they want to know that the ills that they have committed in the lives of other people have been unconditionally forgiven. And what happens when we do that, when we give like this cheap forgiveness out, is we enable people's behavior. We don't let them feel the gravity. And not that we're set up to punish people, but that, like, there's natural consequences when we make shitty choices. And we have to let people have the experience of knowing what it's like to be separated and to have people create space because of our actions. And forgiveness is kind of like this premature rush in and let me embrace you no matter what you did. Prove that you're worthy of forgiveness, and then the forgiveness will come. Don't just expect it because it's some kind of like moral platitude. So that's my sermon for the day. Can I get an amen?
Amen. The other piece that doesn't get talked about is you can't forgive somebody until you process all the anger and probably sadness too, but certainly anger, and you can't just push the anger down or push it away with forgiveness. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I always say you have to learn how to get angry at people for that part of them that did what was probably a boundary violation.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And
it was go ahead.
Do you have, now with your background, do you have difficulty setting boundaries, or are you pretty adept at that?
I am like a boundary ninja. Like I got it on lockdown. My actual issue sometimes is having too many boundaries, because I can start to feel unsafe, and so I hyper manage situations. But yeah, I'm good with the boundaries. One thing that was hard for me to really do whenever I was dealing with the sex addiction in Garrett was accessing my anger. Not because I don't know how to be angry, because obviously I do. I have a lot of angst. But I couldn't separate my therapist brain from like Jasmine. whenever it first all went down, I was like, no, it makes total sense. He has an addiction, and there are compulsive cycles, and there was some father trauma, and like I was just like psychobabbling the shit out of it, and I didn't cry, and I wasn't upset, and I was like, it's not about me, it's about his issues, and I am just going to be here with him as, you know, a co-facilitator. And I had to like literally do like experiential exercises to engage with the anger. Like I had to visualize things that he had told me he had done, and I had to go like throw plates at a wall in an abandoned alleyway so I could feel angry because I wasn't feeling it. I was just like putting it in that cognitive part of our existence and just being like, no, it makes total sense. It's an addiction. It's okay. Well, he's going to go to his meetings. He's going to have a treatment plan. But, you know, I was the therapist and not the wife. So I've had to access being the wife and the friend and get really hurt and angry. And I don't really like that because that makes me feel vulnerable. And I eat a lot of cake when that happens. But, you know, it is what it is. We're getting through it.
Well, it's you know, I appreciate your honesty through all of that. I you know, the old adage that's way overused, but is so apt is we're only as sick as, you know, the things we hide are our secrets or however.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my, you know, my biggest thing is if they only knew, you know, that's my thing. If they only knew like how much I was capable of and how little I'm actually doing, they'd run away.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
Or if they only knew that I did that, you know.
Yeah.
And then what I found is having, and again, with appropriate boundaries, having the courage to share what's really hard, you end up finding, or I've ended up finding a huge community of support. And also that generally people don't run away.
Yeah.
In fact, they feel more connected and more intimately, you know, empathic with you. And,
but there are those assholes that once you do come out and say like, this is me, that they do have like a really negative and hurtful reaction. Like spring break, I guess it was like 2 weeks ago, I was at Blistum and there was a huge pool of local bloggers, that were there. And my roommate, because I don't know why, but she did, told me that there was a girl who is a local blogger who knows me well, who basically was like, oh, I like Jasmine. I just don't like anything she writes about her on her blog. I think she's inappropriate. I think she discusses things that she shouldn't discuss. And, I mean, I was like crying at Blistum, and I'm not a crier, but it really hurt. Because you never want to be told that when you're bearing your soul, because that's really what I do on my blog,
right,
that people don't like you for that. Because that reinforces that belief that we have that we should be other people. Like we should not be who we are. So that was hard, and especially because so many people liked the blogger who said it. I mean, like overall, she's kind of a bitch, but
yeah,
people befriend her because, you know, I'm sure they find things likable in her. And just to have, like, you know, 20-something people know that she had said that about me, and I'm already kind of like the underdog because they're very, like, Southern Belle Christian women, like white hat ladies in the Purple Hat Society, kind of red hat. I don't know the fuck that society is, but they're all in Junior League. I know that, and that is so not my gig. So I cried a lot, and then, you know, Amira and Tracy Beckerman and Nicole and Paris, like, you know, like the people part of the non-con group,
yes,
came up and hugged me, and they were like, we love who you are, and you can't be anyone different because it just doesn't work. And there are people who inevitably who aren't going to like that. And you're valuable, and stop crying, and let's go find somebody to throat punch. So I felt better because I did have the community of people there to embrace me, but it still sucks.
Yeah, it's the weird thing. I think there's just a lot of biology at bay as well with respect to, because most of my readers are women, at least I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And I don't get a lot of the judgment because I think I fit for a lot of women the emotional, intimate part that of their husband that maybe they don't see as much. So I think that I get a pass on a lot of the things I reveal because it's like I talk about my feelings and maybe that's what they wish their significant others did more of. But for women, you guys are so heavily judged by other women. And I don't know if it's the biology part of competition and you're kind of wired up for that, or I don't know what it is, but man, I just don't see it, you know. But I know I know it exists for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's some of it's biology, but I also think that like in this particular case, because I think every situation is different. In this particular case, this blogger has kind of the same upbringing that I had, like a very tragic childhood, and she's had to overcome a lot. And I'm sure she's probably gonna like someone's gonna tell her, and then she's gonna listen to this and hate me even more, but truth got to be said, so I'm going to say it. I think I remind her of what she's trying to pretend like didn't exist in her life, you know? And when you have someone who's constantly like holding up a mirror of where you came from too, when you're trying really hard to pretend like you didn't come from that, you know, when you're fronting basically, you don't want to be reminded. Like that person is an ever-present reminder of all the stuff you're trying to shove down. And Liz has said the same thing to me. She said, you know, you're going to trigger people's shit. And I do. And it sucks because I don't like to be the scapegoat for their angst. Because she's not the first person. But in the Buddhist tradition, I try to accept that it's about their story and their narrative that they're placing on me. Like I'm the object that is getting kind of the transference of whatever memory or person that they struggled with. And so they're not mad at me. They don't hate me. They hate that person, and I just happen to represent that person.
I'm in AA, and I guess I'm not supposed to say that now that I think about it, but publicly. But anyway, one of the smartest things that AA ever came up with, in my opinion, and it's in their 12 and 12 book, which is one of their premier texts. It's something to the effect of, when I'm disturbed by others, there's something within me that's disturbed.
Yeah.
You know, it's so absolutely true.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the Four Agreements kind of thing.
Exactly.
So,
it's attachment.
Yeah. Like we are walking around, and the people we interact with every day aren't always the people who are actually in front of us. It could be our mom or our dad or that fourth cousin or that one guy in the subway who called you that name or whatever. Like we are constantly fixing other people's narratives to the people in our lives. And so that kind of harkens back to what Garrett and I are having to deal with. Like I have to really make sure that I'm holding him responsible for the things he's done and not for the things that, or not for how I feel and how the things he's done are making me feel about things that were in my past. And that's so hard, you know, like when someone calls you a name, it's hard not to feel small and like immediately be ejected back to the schoolyard when there was that one person who hated you and made fun of you in class. Like it's so hard. But it's part of our responsibility, I think, as ethical human beings to one another to let people's stories, let them write their own stories. And so I'm letting Garrett write his own story with me. And I'm not punishing him because my dad cheated on my mom and I saw her heartbreak. And now him cheating on me reminds me of my mom's pain. Like I'm letting it be the story he wrote with me and him, however tumultuous and difficult it is. And that is a truth that I will probably forever struggle with. Like with my kids, they're constantly making me feel in ways that my mom did or my grandma did or whomever did. So there's that, like working through your baggage, but there's also a part where you're just like, you know, and I hate that I'm about to reference this because it's so crazy and it seems superficial, but I was watching The New Normal the other day. Have you seen this show?
No, but I know
Okay.
What it is.
So I was watching The New Normal, and I had like this very like Oprah aha moment where Brian and his mom, like there's like the flamboyantly gay guy, and then his mom and he was like, Mom, like I wasn't your favorite, you didn't love me, whatever, and she just like she laid him out in like 1-2 sentences, and she was like, Brian, how old are you now? Like you're having a baby and you are about to be an expectant father and you're still living with the same wounds that you had when you were 12. When are you And that was really, like, difficult for me to watch because, yes, as a therapist, I believe we have to work through our baggage. We have to revisit those pains and sort through them and create the endings that aren't going to keep bleeding into our future. And also, sometimes we just don't need to deal with it because we just need to grow the fuck up. Like, sometimes I have to stop saying, like, I can't trust you, Dad, Garrett, because my dad cheated on my mom, and I'm afraid you're going to cheat on me again. Like, that's not his story. That's not my story. That's my mom and dad's story, and I can't be that 8-year-old girl who's afraid that, her dad's leaving to go see the mistress. Like, I have to just grow the fuck up.
Well, and that 8-year-old needs a protector.
Yeah.
And that 8-year-old didn't get that, so you can go back at least in that part of you that's still 8 years old, seeing those unfortunate things, and that 8-year-old can be led by the hand and cuddled and
yeah, but that's one of those things that, like, I don't want to be doing that for the next 20 years. Like, I don't want to be doing that exercise of, okay, Jasmine, we're adults now. Let's talk to little Jasmine and tell her she doesn't have to be scared, that she can trust. Like, at some point is like, and I hate to be misogynistic about it, but, like, G up, Jasmine. Come on now. Like, stay with your chest. Grow the fuck.
Right.
So there is a part of me that's definitely gentle and therapeutic and being very kind with myself and working through those pieces. And then there's the part of me that's saying, just because you had trauma doesn't mean that you get to be in process and broken and, just destroyed utterly to the point that you can't function so much. It's time to grow up. Like, you had kids. You got married, you're in the real world, get out of bed, get your shit together. So they're equal parts.
Well, that's a good spot to end up. All broken and trying to put back together. If somebody wants to follow you, they can find you at thebrokens.com. That's BROKINS.com. That's her blog. And then DJazzo, DJAZZO, and you can follow her on Facebook. Just Google. Just on Facebook. What is it? Just Jasmine?
Yeah, on Facebook it's Just Jasmine Blog. Make sure you put Just Jasmine Blog, because if you don't add blog, apparently JustJasmine.com is a porn site. I don't mind the traffic. I get it.
I am currently #1 on Google for dick stories, so I get all sorts of interesting people who visit.
I'm so proud of you. I think my most raunchy one is golden showers. I talked about my kid pissing on me while they were potty training.
That's funny. All right. Well, I really appreciate your time and all of your honesty and vulnerability and intimacy.
Yeah. Hey, man, you're doing good things. Like, this is brilliant, your podcast, and when I first met you, I was a little skeptical. You seemed like an ass kisser who really just, like, wanted to stand on the shoulders of people to, like, climb to bloggy fame. But as I've gotten to know you, like, you're still obnoxious, but, like, it's clear that you're a hard worker, and I really admire that. And you're creative, and you're funny as hell. So,
Thank you.
I hope you get the success in the context of however you're framing success. I don't know what that is. Do you want your own talk show?
I can tell.
Should we make that happen?
I can tell you very specifically my definition of success is if I could one day pay the mortgage through my blog, that would be like the biggest success I could imagine. That's honestly all I'm looking for. And that's not an easy goal either, but it is something that
it's going to happen. Like, I think you're headed in the right direction.
Well, having people encourage me like that is very, again, validation's very good for me. So, or maybe bad for me, I don't know. But I appreciate the kind words. And with that, say goodbye.
Bye, you guys.